Good evening and welcome to the October 7th, 2024 Grafton Board of Health meeting. As a preliminary matter, this is Jen Maynard, Chair of the Board of Health. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. See Yvonne yet. Dan Finn.
Dan Finn, present.
Karen Gwastowski-Govin.
Karen Gwastowski-Govin, present.
Bill Mueller.
Bill Mueller here.
See Yvonne just yet. Staff and anticipated speakers on the agenda, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Nancy Connors.
Nancy Connors here.
Isn't here yet. Amelia Houghton.
Amelia Houghton here.
Ian Wong.
Ian Wong here.
Molly Scannell.
Molly Scannell here.
Devon Thornton.
Devon Thornton here.
Yeah, I don't see Cherry. Soleil Dennis.
Yeah, Solo Dennis here.
Get it right next time. Sorry about that. Jennifer Nakajoba.
Jennifer Nakajoba here.
Thank you. Irene Iambu.
Irene Yanuba here.
I'll work on that one. Thank you. And Evan Brassard.
I'm here.
Thank you. All right. I don't think I missed anyone. Let me keep going. I'd like to open the meeting. Can I get a motion to open the meeting?
This is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to open this meeting.
Is there a second?
This is Bill Mueller. I'll second Dan's motion.
Thank you. Roll call.
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Mueller, aye.
Karen Gwastowski-Govin, aye.
And Maynard, aye. This open meeting of the Grafton Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with the act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of the emergency. This act includes an extension until March 31st, 2025 of the remote meeting provisions of former Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, the act extends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website at www.grafton-mass.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as responsible public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening's meeting. If the public has a question or comment on the agenda, please utilize the Q&A feature in Zoom. Please include your full name and address when submitting a comment. For this meeting, Grafton Board of Health is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees, all attendees, are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share your screen on your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Any supporting materials that have been provided to members of the board are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I'll introduce any speakers on the agenda for a topic after they conclude their remarks. I'll invite the board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please identify yourself by name when speaking. Further, please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, any votes on any motions made during this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Whew. Never gets shorter each time I read it. Okay, we have a robust agenda tonight, so I'll try to move us along as quickly as we can, but we also want to give appropriate time for discussion on the different events. So first up, welcome Evan. Thank you for joining us today. We want to kind of start off by saying we've talked about some of these issues in the past on the Grafton Board of Health and acknowledge that the two topics that you're going to touch upon here, Feedback Earth and the Grafton Water District, are not things that necessarily fall under the Grafton Board of Health authority and regulatory oversight. That said, we do know that Nancy and the folks in the office do tend to get a lot of calls when there's concerns. And certainly where we all live in town, we do know that there are rising concerns on these issues. So we just wanted to acknowledge that, certainly offer any ways in an areas that are under our authority, offer our support to help resolve through those issues with the town and allow you the opportunity to sort of speak on what are the status on those two things, as we know there's been just a lot happening in town recently. So
Right.
I will yield the floor to you.
Okay, is there any particular way you'd like me to start or just kind of go?
I'd say go, and then the biggest thing I think we'd love to hear is just to reaffirm when people are experiencing issues, what are the appropriate contacts for them to try and get resolution for their concerns,
Sure.
and certainly any status updates you have on those issues, and then I'll open it for the board members with any follow-up questions.
Sure. So I guess I'll lead off with Feedback Earth. That is fine with everyone. So I know you're all familiar with this, but this is the human food waste to feed processing plant at 109 Creeper Hill Road. We have been dealing off and on for the past several years with different issues that had previously kind of been chalked up to growing pains and learning. But it definitely feels like we've turned a bit of a corner at this point. So we continue to work with our local DEP office out of Worcester. They are the ones that have direct regulatory authority over odor. And so we are in contact with them at least a couple times a week, some weeks daily, depends on what we're experiencing. We're also in constant communication with Representative Meridian's office, Senator Moore's office. And we've really just been trying to push on the push on the lever, or pull on the levers of the people that can actually implement something. So our biggest challenge of late has been that there are state agencies involved and they are taking certain actions. We're not privy to the actions, and we also need to be cautious of what our local actions are so that we don't just jeopardize anything that they may have on the table. That puts us in a little bit of a predicament with the public. We want to be as responsive as possible, and we want to be doing as much as possible to get people back to the quality of life that they deserve. But we also don't want to put ourselves in a position where we wind up harming something that would get this resolved for them faster. So, I think we're probably, hopefully, no more than a week to 2 weeks out of whatever the state has been working on. We continue to work, locally and just try to look for anything we can do to implement change. So one of those things, just not to ramble, but today I spent some time, we are getting complaints of, and we have had complaints of trash blowing across the road. And so we're looking at the appropriate response for that. We've also got complaints of an oily film that collects in the area. And so we're starting to look at that. It's a complicated issue. It's all very murky of where DEP is going to end and we're going to start. But we do need to be taking, I think, a firmer stance on action with the things that we can control. So that's my Feedback Earth update, I think. With things that are within the purview kind of, or close to the purview of the Board of Health. They did just to mention, they did have a fire up there a couple weeks ago. It was a generator. It was outside the building. I want to make sure that I mention that. I don't generally speak to fire stuff. Our fire chief is a separate entity here in Grafton. But I will acknowledge that occurred and that the fire department did release a statement. I think it was like, if top of mind, it's 18 different points that they need to rectify. So that is my short summation on that. Happy to take any questions you might have.
You, Evan. So I think folks, if they're not sure where to call to, file
Thank you.
a complaint, they can continue to call the Grafton Board of Health or the town hall, and you all will direct them to the appropriate party if it's not the Board of Health to deal with that issue.
Yes, we have been also, we have we have all of this information up on our website. It does carry the most recent hotline information for folks to call. There's also been some issues with the hotline. And so DEP has also released a dedicated email address for this to go to DEP, really for the sole purpose of reporting hotline problems.
Yeah.
That's really what they're looking for there. But all of that is available 24/7 on our website. And, if we do like to direct people there, because if it changes, we'll change it immediately on that site. And that'll be the most current information you can get.
Great. And I think as speaking for the board, and I'll open up to other board members, if there are things, as you said, that end up coming into our purview, we'll be happy to be as responsive and as quickly as possible on those things. Again, we know that there's lodging, concerns, as you said, since I think the last time we talked about this was probably 2 years ago, where we said that we weren't sort of the oversight authority on that. Members of the board, any follow-up questions or comments for Evan on feedback? Dan?
There we go. Hang on. Yeah, this is Dan Finn. So, I think we all feel bad or badly about the residents in those neighborhoods, obviously. But Evan, either under your direction or can the highway department deal with the trash and the oil slick situation directly? Or do we have to wait for direction from the DEP on that?
No, so I'm working on that kind of in the background here. Sorry, I gotta move my laser leveler that's over here for some reason from a project I did 2 weeks ago. But anyways, so the oil slick issue is interesting. So it appears to be an oily film that's carried by the air, and landing on people's structures and cars and stuff in the very immediate area is how it was described. So I don't know that this is where I start to get a little murky, right? So it's not really a highway department, DPW department area. And so we're looking into, what's the enforcement mechanism there, and we will engage counsel on that to just guide us the rest of the way. And then the trash, I think, is easily within our purview. And so we have done, it's another interesting kind of conundrum, I guess, that our normal response to trash problems and or debris in the road or anything like that is to ask the person responsible for it to clean it up. That's usually step one. So in this case, Feedback did purchase a street sweeper. And so we are keeping an eye on the roadways and areas that are within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, things like that. Trash blowing into a neighbor's property actually is different. And so we're looking at how we enforce that component of it.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation for sure. And I don't think that a recommendation or request from our board to the DEP is going to expedite things any more than it sounds like they were finally pretty much on top of it, and going to come up with a plan pretty soon, we all hope.
Yeah, I think so. The positive takeaway for the town is that we spent a lot more time with DEP. and we've learned a lot more about this type of enforcement and where our jurisdiction ends and theirs begins, and kind of the ins and outs of what they're doing. Not that I'm glad we went through this, but just that if there's one takeaway that I have as a town administrator, it's that, I think that if we were to be in this situation again in the future, we would, find those levers faster. So.
Thank you.
I think, Dan, to that point, if, the support of sign off of a board or some of us attending some of those meetings, whatever would be most helpful, we are more than willing to do those things, even again, we don't necessarily have the authority, but if it speaks to whatever group, we are happy to do those things to advocate for the residents.
Yeah. Sorry. One other thing actually that comes to mind as we're talking about this is that, it probably, I think it would be a worthwhile exercise to look into drafting our own local odor ordinances, bylaw, and we are able to do that under the authority of the DEP. The enabling authority actually says, with approval from DEP. So it would be something, I think, to look at what other communities have, and kind of tailor it to what Grafton has available as far as staffing, expertise, and things like that. Mainly because we don't have the reach or the authority that the DEP has, but even if it's something that gets drafted that gives us a small amount of local authority and then, cedes power over to DEP at some sort of threshold, might be something worth reviewing or looking into.
There's any other questions or comments on that? Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question, reading through some of this. Who employs the sniffer? I mean, is it the people from Feedback Earth, or is it the department, the State Department? I mean, there are times when they say, well, there are complaints and the plant was closed, or the wind was blowing in the other direction, or and I just wonder, if they're employed by Feedback Earth, then obviously there's potentially a conflict of interest in terms of, how does that get adjudicated?
Right. So as I understand it from speaking to DEP, the sniffer is a mandated a mandated component of Feedback's compliance by the DEP. So Feedback has to cover those costs. So in a way, they do work for Feedback. However, the idea is that they're supposed to be a disinterested third party. Another interesting component to this that I learned after going through different iterations of this and speaking with DEP is the DEP is less interested in those other factors at this point, i.e., I got there 2 minutes later or an hour later and it didn't smell anymore, not substantiated. We weren't running the plant at that time, not substantiated. All these different things. DEP is looking for when somebody had come across the smell and what it smelled like and how it impacted their lives. And I can tell you that, there are days when I would turn onto the lower part of Creeper Hill over by Nelson Park and get a whiff of it clear as day. And I know what it smells like because I've been around long enough. And then 200 feet up the road, it's gone, right? Wind direction's variable. I guess I've got an appreciation to how smells travel and that it's not always under the strict orthodoxy that you think of when you think of wind direction, right? Wind direction at different elevations, different temperatures at different elevations, dew points, humidity, all these things factor into it. So DEP has been pretty clear and pretty consistent that they don't believe any call is unsubstantiated. They don't have that in their lexicon. That's not what they're doing here. They want to know how people are impacted, and if it relates to the facility. And that's probably tough to prove, which is why we would need some kind of metric to kick this over to DEP in our own local ordinance. But I think I don't buy all of the responses from the sniffer, and I don't think DEP does either. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that, it's a garbage day. I've smelled garbage a lot. I know what it smells like kind of and what it does. You know what I mean? So I think we need to, I think DEP is well aware of that. So that kind of, to get to your conflict of interest question, I think, there's a potential conflict there possibly, but this does seem like DEP's standard operation. And they do seem to be, in my opinion, very grounded in the real world and can see that the information, they know what information they're looking for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, great question, Bill. And I think that speaks to obviously the areas that concern us, as well as people, and how they're feeling, constantly smelling those things, or even, incidentally kind of driving through and smelling something and it making them not feel well. And as Bill said, in some of those, it will not necessarily be substantiated because of the wind direction, but they can smell it at the door. And so there's a smell there, just as you said, if something changed, they might not necessarily be finding it themselves. So I think it's refreshing to hear that DEP would say that it doesn't matter if when you got there at that person's address, it was gone. It's at the door and the wind could have changed and that person experienced that and possible negative side effects from that. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Right. Yep.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments on Feedback Earth, we'll move to the water department.
Okay. You guys should have me on here when we're doing fun stuff. This is
Oh, well, I know. I was like, we haven't seen
pretty
Evan in
big
a while. Why don't we?
impact
There's a
stuff, I
lot
know.
going on. Let's bring Evan on.
Been since the pandemic was at its height. Evan.
Well,
I mean,
you
come
know,
on.
And I don't know if you know, I'm the new chair, so
Yes.
they're baptizing me with fee
Hey.
changes and all this stuff. So
there you go. So for those folks who are unfamiliar with it, Grafton Water District, there's two water districts in Grafton Water District and South Grafton Water District. Grafton Water District, that is the one that's experiencing problems currently. And just to back up one more step. So the Grafton Water District is formed by a special act of the legislature. It was an act enacted in 1984. And it gives the district pretty much the look and feel of a separate municipality. So they have their own elections and their own elected commissioners. Those commissioners do the hiring and the firing and the oversee operations. So it puts the town really on no legal footing to do almost anything that connects with the water district. We do have a mutually beneficial relationship in that when we're doing projects or they're doing projects, we may share equipment or staffing or work together if they've got water infrastructure right next to other infrastructure. So there is that level of coordination. But beyond that, we don't share revenue. We don't do any of that. Their money is wholly separate from the town and the taxpayers' money. Now that the disclaimer is over, so I'm sure you've all seen photos on Facebook or online or on the news. They are having a substantial brown water issue. As it was explained to me, and as I've tried to learn through their public information process, a lot of it has to do with which well they're pumping out of, how much water they can pump out of certain wells, and the minerals or elements that are in the water from certain wells. So one of the wells has manganese, and then they are adding chlorine to that, and the two of those bind together, which creates flocculation, which creates the brown water. They're also flushing hydrants. The flushing does help, but it does cause some cavitation, which causes some temporary brown water. So it does seem to be intermittent, and it travels around as they try to flush water out of certain areas. They are also stating that it is safe, just dirty. And I know that they are working closely with DEP as far as getting access to different wells. Not access to different wells, getting having the amount they can pump out of each well changed or raised so that they can pull water out of wells that aren't creating this problem more. And that's probably close to the extent of my knowledge of what they're doing. So I have spoken with the water district, and you know, it does seem they to me they've been transparent. Once this really took a turn, from what I hear from residents, they've had brown water issues off and on for quite a while. This seems to be much worse than it was previously. And so once this really, like I said, once it got worse, it seemed like they did the appropriate things, did the outreach meeting, and have really tried to be working through it. They're doing a ton of flushing. I do see that on a almost daily basis. So I think that might be the extent of where I'm at.
Yeah. So obviously, even if people say it's safe to drink, it's brown.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yes.
very brown.
Yes.
I can imagine why people would not want to drink that. I think, you know, what's alarming is, you know, even though we know it's, you know, caused by chemicals and wells and things, you know, this certainly speaks to other communities outside of Massachusetts that have had significant water issues. I think everybody's brain, you know, I don't need to say any towns or states of that. But I think it's alarming for people to see other residents to be dealing with that in Massachusetts. Recently, you know, we all saw some postings where people were talking about going to water filling stations to get clean drinking water.
Mhm.
Which, you know, again, I understand they're saying it's clean and it's safe to drink. It just doesn't look clean. You know, maybe one thought to bring to their attention would be to see if they could set something like that up for people that are, you know, paying for water through them.
Yep.
And, you know, not everybody has the means to go and pay for water to drink. And so they're having to drink brown water. People are also talking about, you know, less so focused on their health, but, you know, their quality of life of their laundry being impacted as well, because you're obviously also using chemicals to clean your clothing. So, you know, for my perspective, I think maybe those might just be recommendations to talk through with them if there's anything they can do for people that are, you know, paying for a service and they're going through the flushing. And I think I saw recently that some folks were having clear water, and then like the next day, again, it was some folks, like you said, it's intermittent, it moves around. But, you know, top of mind being people's perception of their health being, or possibility of being impacted by, you know, water that's discolored, and offering some sort of alternative in those moments, if possible.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, thanks. This is Dan. I would think that periodically they would have to send a water analysis or testing by an independent lab to the DEP, but and maybe that's been ramped up. But it'd be nice if maybe they volunteered to do it more frequently, like monthly or something, instead of quarterly or annually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I do know that they have to send in their water quality reports and testing to DEP, but I don't top of mind remember the frequency or if it has been elevated for
Because of the
because
complaints.
of this, but it's a good suggestion. for sure. And I
Yeah,
can-
and if you're boiling it, people might feel a little bit better, but.
Right, for peace of
the
mind.
the cooking and things are peace of mind, but having that, I did see some folks saying that I think people could buy test kits and some people have done that, but again, the less people have to spend to prove that
No,
they're.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other comments by the members of the board? Well, thank you, Evan. We put you on the top of the agenda to hopefully not hold you for too long, but I think
Okay.
this was helpful for us to just sort of get up to speed as to what's been going on, even though, as you can see, we've been trying to follow all the different things happening, but better to hear it from the source of information. And again, we just want to express that any of the things that might come up where we can try and resolve things for residents and to support the office, your office, please do not hesitate to let us know.
Okay. Thank you so much. And please have me back when we're not dealing with any
Yeah,
cases.
absolutely. We promise.
Happy to come back and talk about normal stuff when we
That's great.
get through this. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go. It's bedtime over here. So
There you go. Perfect
put a
timing.
couple girls to bed. So thank you so much. Good to see everyone and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks all. Good questions. Yvonne is not on with us, I don't believe. So just to note here, and we'll introduce her next time, hopefully. We do have a new member of the Board of Health, Yvonne Ashworth, who I believe is also a nurse. And we'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself when she joins us next time. Alliance friends, thank you so much for shuffling the agenda with us today. Probably helpful for you to hear all the fun things happening, although I'm sure you're aware as well. But let's kick it over to you for the Alliance update. Who would like to get us started? Is it Jennifer?
Sure, I can do that. Yes. Myself and Irene will give you an update on prevention efforts within the schools in Grafton. Irene does on the ground work in the schools currently. I believe I gave an update on that work about 1.5 years ago. So I'm going to just go over just a brief overview to give you a brief genesis of where we were before and how we are where we are right now. So currently we have a grant, the Mascot VB grant, that Irene currently works in collaboration with the schools to implement. But prior to that, we've had several prevention grants for over 10 years. And I think a few of you have been with us when we have done this work. So we've had, I want to say, 2 previous grants. We've had Mascot 1, 2, and this is 3. So the difference between the other grants and this one is that previously the focus was on opioid, alcohol, and marijuana. But right before COVID, as we have been doing the Regional Youth Health Survey, we saw an increase in nicotine usage. So this round of funding has included nicotine usage as well. So I'll let Irene go pull up the presentation and share that and be able to go over that work. It's been really great in the last year to see how much the schools have really been involved in this work. They've always been on board in terms of just collaborating with us and bringing youth to the table. The prevention work for us there's been a focus on youth prevention work. So it's always great to have youth at the table. And I think that Grafton continues to do exactly that. Each single meeting we've had with them, we have more youth at the table because the hope is that we can train youth, who can train their peers, right? And be able to do the work in collaboration with them. Both in the high school and middle school, we have seen an increase in collaboration. So I think 1.5 years ago, I did come up to the Board of Health, talk about the assessment process, focus groups that we conducted, whether with parents or youth as well, and being able to take that information. So in collaboration with the focus groups and then the data that we had, we've been able to tailor our efforts for Grafton using that data. So today, Irene will go over step by step where we are right now and what we hope to accomplish in the following year within the school.
Hello, once again. I'm really honored to be with you today. I had a presentation that I was hoping to share with the team, but I don't have access to share yet.
Oh, let me see if I can fix that. Advance, host and panelists. Here we go. Right now.
Okay, perfect. I share my screen.
We don't do many screen shares here. We shy away from it, but this is great.
Let me see, slideshow right from the start. Perfect. I hope you can all see.
Yes.
Yes. So pardon me if I do not know some of the term. This is my first time here, and it's also the first time I have been asked, are you part of the Alliance? I know that, but nobody have asked me that before. So I got confused there. Thank you for that.
Sorry, it's okay. It took me a while to get to get everybody's names too.
So as Jen has already introduced where Mascot 3B started from, I'll go right over in terms of overview, then the assessment, I'll mention it briefly. The planning phase was very bulky, and I thought the effort that was put in place need to be highlighted. And then why we chose the strategies that we chose and what next. Jen has already mentioned this, so I'll just emphasize that this particular program is also focusing on the youth and is to prevent the first time usage. But we are hoping that even those who have used substance before through this effort may make choice to stop using. And then as usual, our catchment area Grafton is one of them. So the grant, as a reminder, uses the framework, the strategic prevention framework, where we go through the assessment, capacity building, planning, implementation, and then evaluation. And as highlighted, we are now at the implementation stage. This, I don't know whether you can see the whole, it's like a map of how we move using this framework, the assessment, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And through all these stages, we are hoping to build capacity at the various agency level so that even without the program or if the grant is no more, people have the skills to always know how to assess their own data and plan and then implement effective evidence-based strategies. Yeah, perfect. So at the assessment phase, we had over 13,000 students responding to it, and to the regional youth health survey. And then about 76 participants took part in the interview and focal group, which gave a little more detail on what the responses in the survey were talking about. And that became the foundation of Mascot 3 work. I brought in a bit of this data to show that as much as 2001 data is what gave the foundation, it's still relevant today because the 2003 data shows that not so much has changed. So whatever the 2001 data inform us to make the decision or the strategies that we came up with is still relevant today. So with alcohol, I know these have been presented to you earlier on, so I'm not going to speak so much about it. However, the concern is if we look at the first time usage has used drink before age 13. we saw a rise. That means we have to hurry up and start our implementation. So I am hoping we can share this later on so that if you want to go into details, you can have it. So at the planning stage, that was just when I have gotten involved in this work. And I must say I enjoyed it because of the collaborative effort, and I got to know so many people through this phase. And Grafton, I'll say the welfare committee were very, very instrumental at this stage. So in the planning phase, we managed to engage 8 diverse groups. And out of that, we got 56 of them who voted for the intervening variables. These intervening variables are actually risk factors and protective factors that we identified based on the data to indicate that if we can do something here, there could be a change in behavior. So that was what happened. And through the whole exercise, we realized there were some key areas of concern in this among people who contributed. And one was school climate, parent-child communication, and then unfortunately, there were some students who did not think this substance were harmful, and then neighborhood improvement or safety. Unfortunately, we knew we could not solve all the problems. So we're looking for strategies that at the end of the day will support not just substance prevention, but will improve other adolescent or teenage behaviors of concern as well, such as teenage pregnancy, school dropout, or not attending classes and all that. So we looked at the data, the evidence out there to see which of the strategies were the best implementing and giving good results. And out of that, we came out with the healthy outcome from positive experience. This one was very interesting as we explored it, and we were excited. Oh, this works, but we didn't know. We didn't have the words to explain it to even people that we wanted to participate. And yet we were bold enough to still choose it. And the second strategy was building capacity to review school curriculum every now and then to reflect the need as and when the data arrive. And so we did a hope readiness campaign to resolve the issue of we not having the language to explain hope as we go on. And that was when we had training. We did the training for stakeholders, but Grafton was the only one that was able to go forward and train the welfare committee as well, including some of the students. And they loved it so much that they are moving forward with this. They cannot wait for us to start the implementation. And so I want to congratulate Grafton for the leadership, I would say. And so after the training we did, this is just something that we learn in the training that Hope is able to do. And so we were excited that, okay, we chose this because it's not only going to help us in substance prevention, but overall the general well-being of the individual as well. And even the adults that have started the training are already pointing out how it affects them as well, not just the youth. So we are very excited that we are using our resources to the best of our maximum gain. So one of the things that we realized with Hope was to improve relationship of youth with adults, improve youth engagement in community activity. And then that is the building blocks of hope. And then also improve emotional intelligence. And then the final one is improve their ability to talk to an adult about things that are of concern to them. And so these are some of the things that are example of the experiences that some people have mentioned before, and we are hoping that we can improve those opportunities in our region here. And yes, so we did the awareness, and the feedback has been great so far. And these are some of the recommendations that came out from the readiness campaign. People are saying we should integrate into local effort, engage or equip local organizations to be the people helping the family through this process, and then establish community ambassadors to handle this. And so what next? We have our work plan now drawn to move on, and that is what we need the Board of Health, your leadership and your network to help us really ground this. As I said, this is a tool, things we are already doing. If a parent already walks to the park and play with their child, we want them to know that that thing you are doing have a positive effect on the child, so that they will be intentional. And if some parents are not doing it, they will begin to also improve the number of times they are supposed to do it. So these are things that are already there, and we just want more and more people to know that this works, and it will help the youth to prevent the first time usage of substance. So we are also hoping to launch this, and we will need your leadership present. Apart from your present, bringing on board those that you know are leaders and play very important role with certain groups of people, so that they can come and hear what this whole hope is about, maybe take part in the training, and then we can be able to get more and more people aware and trained as possible. So at this phase, as I said, it's still capacity building. We are hoping we will get more and more people trained to the extent that if the grant is no more tomorrow, we already have the skills to continue implementing hope in our schools and at the community. So thank you very much.
Irene, can you go back to the slide with the data a little bit so I can clarify that?
Okay. Which of them?
The first one, that one. I just wanted to add that the data used for this current effort was 2021 data. The survey that was done within the schools. Grafton and other schools have since taken another survey in 2023. That data is sitting with the schools currently. And we hope to use that current data too in these prevention efforts. But if you look at this slide, talking about alcohol, we saw an increase from the 2021 data from 15% to 29% alcohol usage. I know that the last few years it's been a focus on vaping specifically, and I think that a lot of times things like alcohol are not really focused on as much anymore. But we look at this data, and I think the surprise for most of us from 2021 data, we thought we'll see a really huge increase in vaping numbers, and we didn't see that. But we see that alcohol usage is still a concern, not just in Grafton, but we are seeing that in other towns as well. And I would say, Irene, if you go to the next slide as well, for cannabis usage as well, there's an increase from 8% to 20% for 2021 data. Of course, we'll see what the data from last year says as well, but we're seeing that these other substances that we don't see using daily within the schools, they are reporting that they're using them a lot more than we think they are. So I wanted to just go over that a little bit. And if you go to tobacco usage, there wasn't an increase, surprisingly, right? in terms of vaping. So yeah, I wanted to clarify that a little bit before if folks had any questions regarding the data.
Thank you, Chief, for that. And actually, that was why we said, even though 2021 informed this strategy, we still think the data, as the current data, is supporting that we made the right choice. We need to do something.
Thank you. So I think certainly as you all are needing assistance with rolling out some of these things and the awareness sort of building, I think we can think of a few different departments outside of the board that we've worked with on a couple of different issues that can help reach more people and engage them, as you said. I'm thinking things like we have a great rec department that touches a lot of different programs and families and adults, across the spectrum that, getting this information, getting people trained, I think would be great. Members of the board, any questions, comments? All right. Who's next from the Alliance?
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. All right.
I can go with the COVID updates.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Arbovirus. So for COVID updates, COVID numbers are actually decreasing at the moment. 15 reported cases in Grafton for the month of September, which is down from 30 in August. So that's good news. The wastewater summary reflects a leveling off in results for the end of September. So it's, backed up by the wastewater reports. No reported cases of flu, measles, or pertussis for September. Hospitalizations mildly fluctuate weekly. Masking and vaccinations are still the best protection we have at the moment. Current vaccines are out from Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax that complement the current strains of COVID, just like the flu vaccine. It's formulated for what's out now for this season. All age groups are encouraged to get it, including pregnant people. Our records show that it's still available at CVS in North Grafton. So that's a resource for citizens of Grafton. For vaccine information, all age groups are encouraged to get the 2024-25 flu vaccine in early fall. Those 60 years old and above should consider getting the higher dose vaccine formulated for this specific age group. All infants less than 8 months old and infants 8 to 19 months old with risk factors, such as like immunocompromised status, things like that, should get the Nirsevimab RSV vaccine, which is a monoclonal antibody shot that protects for 5 months. And then adults 75 plus and adults 60 to 74 with risk factors should get the lifetime RSV dose. Pregnant people 32 to 36 weeks along should get the Pfizer Abrysvo vaccine, the RSV vaccine, which is specifically formulated for pregnant people. That's the only one formulated for pregnant people. We had a vaccine clinic on September 27th, 12 to 4, in the Municipal Center gym, offering flu 60 plus, shingles, which is a 2-part vaccine, RSV, and COVID. This was a townwide clinic. And at the end of the day, 86 flu vaccines were given, 62 COVID vaccines were given, 5 shingles, and 9 RSV vaccines were given. So shingles is a 2-part vaccine. So we'll be planning a round 2 clinic in about 2 to 3 months just to get those people that we did round 1 for. And then there was a clinic at the Grafton Middle School that was unfortunately canceled due to lack of interest. For arbovirus updates, the season is June to October, so we're nearing the end of it. The report was shared with Nancy and Beth by Amelia. And risk levels are lower now that it's getting colder. Mosquitoes are dying. West Nile virus and EEE risk level is moderate for Grafton, meaning a case occurred in our area within the last year And there is West Nile virus and or there's West Nile virus or Triple E found in mosquitoes in the area during this season. So it's one of the others that categorize us as a moderate risk. Suggestive preventative measures still include repairing window screens, wearing mosquito repellent between dusk and dawn, and when outdoors for longer periods of time. Wearing long sleeves and long pants from dusk to dawn. Using mosquito netting on baby carriers, carriages, and playpens. And avoiding outside areas with obvious mosquito activity. Other updates include another blood pressure clinic was added to the senior center, 10 to noon. So now I'll be going the first and third Thursday of every month. And we'll no longer be holding the one at the Housing Authority on Forest Lane, which was not as busy. And requests for a file of life assistance will be taken as needed during those times at the senior center. So, yeah,
Great.
that's it. That'll do it.
A little busy. Great results on your vaccine clinics. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, we pulled in some good numbers.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. Any updates from the opioid settlement funds?
Yeah, that'll be me. And Dr. Miller, Dan, and Nancy, you're all there. So jump in to add anything that I forget. The one thing that's been happening to at the last meeting is that the group's been expanding, and we're looking at, I think, kind of like Irene said, representation throughout the city, everything else. I know you're doing the transition from the new chief, and he was there and participating. That was great. We're looking at, mini grants so that we give money out to, different citizens, youth, and all that who may have ideas to do. I think the police applied for a mini grant to do DARE and so forth. Like Irene said, we are looking at the data we have, doing data programs, everything else. We're looking at evidence-based programs, which is HOPE was one of the programs we were talking about too to use. And the other thing too is Mass Cares is what's set up in Massachusetts to help the opioid settlement cities, the towns and cities to spend the money. So they're going to be coming to the next opioid meeting to kind of talk to us about what our plans are, what the state's plans are, and how to, see how we're working with the others. And just as an aside to the others on the board and to speak, they add anything. I know Shrewsbury, they have their committee together, and we're waiting for West Boylston to pull their committee together. And the important piece about that is we're putting together an alliance kind of group. So someone from Grafton, Shrewsbury, so we can see how we can share our resources, share what we're doing, do the educational pieces together. So again, as Irene says, between us in the room, even though this is recorded, Grafton's doing a fantastic job. They're moving ahead. They're, moving at a great pace and everything else. I was really happy last week or last month whenever we met, the diversity of the group coming and the ideas coming out and everything else. And it's really going well. So I don't know if Dr. Mueller, Dan, Nancy, you have anything to add from the meeting that just happened, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yep. This is Dan. Yeah, just that Sherry has organized a naloxone or Narcan training session. So I believe this one's primarily for municipal workers, and certainly anybody on the Board of Health or that would like to go can. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's entirely open to the public, Ian, but it's at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, October 23rd at the Grafton Police Station. And then I think after that, we may be going to the community, depending on how well received this one is.
Yeah, exactly. Great point, Dan. And that's what we're trying to do is hit specific populations and groups. So we can do municipal workers and then open it up to everything else. And Nancy, do you have anything to add? Because
I posted.
Posted.
Posted it.
You have to mute your computer. We can hear you through your phone.
I posted it on the website, and I asked William to put it out on Facebook. I don't know if it's out there. I haven't checked.
Yeah, it's great. So the outreach is going out through the community and everything else, and we're picking up speed. And Dr. Mealy, do you have anything to add?
I would just reiterate that I think we are making progress, and I do think that expanding to other concerned constituencies is an important part of that. You know, one of the members of our group is a grandparent raising grandchildren because her son had been seriously affected by opiate use. Certainly, I think the resources that your group brings from Worcester is helpful, and I think as we develop a alliance really with our fellow towns, I think that will help as well.
Yeah. And if I can add one other piece too, it's great the diversity we're seeing in the group and how it's growing. And I think as Irene stated and everything else, we're also looking at alcohol, other drugs, and mental health, because we know they're all kind of attached and connected. And I think that will be the exciting piece, that even though this is the opioid task force, we understand there's a lot of connections to a lot of parts. And, you know, in some ways you can look at it and say, oh, why are you dealing with mental health? Well, there's a lot of mental health issues that lead towards substance abuse. You know, why are you dealing with alcohol, you know, instead of opioids? Well, we know there's a relationship between, you know, but you know what I'm talking about. There's all these connections. So we're really trying to make a dynamic group that looks at this and really approaching it from a mental health standpoint, a substance use disorder standpoint, a recovery standpoint. Like Dr. Muir said, you know, grandparents who, aren't using, but they're affected by their children and taking care of the grandchildren. So we're really trying to look at, pretty much all citizens and all community members in Grafton. So it's really kind of, the last meeting was really exciting. It was really good to see it, right? Because I forgot, Rose, right? She's one of the principals. I thought they had, came up too, so we got the schools involved.
Right, and also the pastor, a reverend from the Unitarian Universalist Church, and Marion DeFries is keeping track, I believe, of people signing up for like the Narcan training as well. So she's pretty active.
And great. And one of the great things too that Nancy's doing that she should take credit for is we're really looking at, not everyone can attend the meetings, not everyone can be there, but how they can get the voice out there, right? So you may not be able to make the meetings, may not make multiple meetings, but again, with the social media piece, we're getting feedback and input from the community. So, you don't have to be a physical member in the group to have your voice heard. Okay, and I think that's the summary I have. We're going to meet, I think, in a couple weeks again.
Right, Wednesday, October 22nd at 4:30.
See, I'm very impressed. You know all these dates.
He knows all the meetings.
I don't even know what time it is.
I just put my calendar together this afternoon. That's the only reason I remember that.
Okay. Yeah, you should have said, I was very impressed. I thought that you were one of those people who said, what was the day of 1909 on the 23rd? No, it's a Monday. Yeah.
That's
how we report.
Thank you for that update. And it sounds like a really holistic approach to this, as you said, Ian, not just, focusing on opioids and specifically, but more broadly, as well as the community more broadly. That's great.
I just wanted to point out the 22nd is actually a Tuesday.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
You guys.
I'm the one who misses me.
I bet you're all a fun group.
Yes.
Karen, did you have your hand raised?
No.
Oh, I
Bill
thought
had his raised.
Yes, it's weird. It came up like a white hand instead of a yellow hand by you for a second. I don't know why. All right. Thank you all. I see. Welcome, Yvonne.
Hello.
You can hear us. Great.
Hello.
Do you want to listen for the remainder of the meeting, or did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself, or what would you?
Yeah, so my apologies for coming on late. It was an awful day at work. So,
That's all right. We'll put you on to introduce yourself at the top of the next meeting if you want to kind of listen to the flow for today.
perfect. I appreciate that.
Wonderful. I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you.
I think Devon, did we save the best update for last? No, they're all great. They're all great.
I think all the good stuff happened. So I will just give my report. We've had, I've done 13 food inspections. One complaint, a resident had a complaint about an overpass or bridge that's close to his home. He was concerned with the noise. But I had to let him know that that was kind of out of our jurisdiction, and told him he might wanted to connect with Department of Transportation about that issue. I think the Department of Transportation is aware of it. I think they reached out to us to see if there were any more complaints about the issue, and he was actually the only resident that complained about it. Other than that, DOT is taking care of it. We've also had one soil inspection, 3 septic inspections, 1 component repair, and 1 full septic system repair. And that's all I have to report from the inspectional side of things.
Members of the board, any questions for Devon? Dan?
Yep, this is Dan. Just one, Devon, I was familiar with all the facilities you inspected for food inspections, except up at Tufts. I know they have a cafeteria, but it was like a meat. I couldn't dig it up on my phone here.
The retail meat?
Retail meat something.
So they actually sell chicken, lamb, and other items that are processed from their facility.
So they have a storefront or something? Or?
It's a small storefront. It is. It's really small. It's kind of like actually, I apologize. It's actually a small operation. They have a small reach-in cooler and 2 freezers. And it's variety. You have a variety of options.
That's interesting, yeah. I don't know if we license them. Nancy would know.
We do. We permit them.
Okay, permit, right? Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. All right, Nancy, you can help me on this one if I mess it up. So we received a letter, not long, I think after our last meeting, perhaps, a variance request to 105 CMR 590.00010 of the state sanitary code for the food establishment code from Elder Services of Worcester area. Actually, we talked about it briefly on our last meeting. My brain is remembering a little bit. And so essentially they were asking for the board to consider not requiring Elder Services of Worcester to produce a certified food protection manager. And I think also not require the Council on Aging to have one because of the different regulating authorities over the Elder Services of Worcester food program, where they come into the Council on Aging and they give the Meals on Wheels out. Nancy did some investigation with other boards that Elder Services does this with, maybe some folks from the Alliance, and review of the code. And based upon that, it appears that Elder Services of Worcester would not be required to produce a certified food protection manager certificate, but they would need to be permitted for bringing in the food. They would need to get a permit to bring the food to the Council on Aging. However, as it sits today, the Council on Aging does have several individuals that are serve safe food handlers, but they are not they do not have the manager piece of it, the food manager. And because of the fact, which would include the allergen and all that stuff, because the Council on Aging is the site and also does other things beyond the Elder Services of Worcester food. They do other things with food, right? They might have other food come in, they might cook food there, hold special events. They do need to have their certified food permit for that location, and then actually producing that would suffice for Elder Services of Worcester to meet their inspection requirements for the state. So rather than having Elder Services of Worcester have to produce that documentation for their permitting to us, the Council on Aging certification could suffice for Elder Services of Worcester. Did I get that right, Nancy?
Yes.
There was a lot of documentation to review. I think the issue for the board here is that, you know, the Council on Aging was hoping that they would not have to go to that next level of certification. And so I think we probably do need to clarify for them that they do need to get the manager certificate for the location. And then Elder Services will just need to do a permit and a little less, you know, submission of materials for that.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, please do.
So currently what we're doing right now in Shrewsbury, well, all the towns that the Alliance work with, this is something that we're working with. And right now in Shrewsbury, the goal, what we're hoping to do is actually have Elder Services of Worcester get a catering permit. And that will suffice what they would need in order to prepare the meals at the Council of Aging centers. And we could either give the Council of Aging an option to either get the permit, the manager's state's manager certification, or they wouldn't be able to hold any events that that provided any foods that we would be considered foods that are high risk foodborne illness foods. So they would just be limited to prepackaged food items or things of that sort, or they would actually have to have a catering company come in and maybe provide those meals, whether it be a holiday function or whatever function they're trying to cover. If not, then their best bet is going to be to get the Safe Serve manager certification. But currently, we're hoping to establish that with all the towns, so everybody's on board doing the same thing. So right now, Emma, I can't say her last. She's my coworker. I can't say her last name. Stefanski in Shrewsbury. She's the other, and she's my coworker. She's working with Council of Aging there, also with our director, Mrs. Denisola. And so we're hoping to get that established in Shrewsbury and have it in West Boylston and Grafton as well.
Okay. I think, do you happen to know, I know Elder Services did pose, you know, they were concerned about having to add additional staff. I think there's people at the Councils on Aging that could qualify for this, but you know, we might get asked the question about whether or not there's funding to support, you know, the certification process for them at all, or if it'll have to come through their budget. But I do know that that was one of the questions. But I think there's probably precedent in other communities that they do these types of things with, which is why you're leaning in this direction.
Because the Elder Services of Worcester, they're already monitored by the state as well. So for us to do an inspection, so when they apply for a permit, if they do the caterer's permit, when we go in to do an inspection, they get our inspection form, and that's considered a record that the state could request. So they would have that. and under a caterer's permit, they have the ability to provide the foods, to serve the foods at the Council of Aging, because where they're preparing the food, there's someone already considered to be the safe serve manager that is overseeing everything that's going on. So the food is just being transported
Right,
to our facility in Grafton.
right. So it lightens the load on elder services of
Yes,
Worcester,
yes.
while also allowing the councils on aging to have full flexibility to host events with other
Yes.
foods.
Yeah. And that's the biggest, and that was my biggest concern, because one of the issues with the Council of Aging, which makes a whole lot of sense, they shouldn't be required to be available if the fire department decides they want to have a function at the Council of Aging.
They're the ones holding.
Yes. So, and that's one of the issues.
Got it.
That's one of the reasons why they're not excited about having to get the Safe Search Manager certification.
Nancy?
Is the goal to get all the alliance towns to do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I thought someone was going to say something.
Yeah.
Saying something, Devon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So my apology, my video is not working. So my name is Solo Dennis. I'm the director for the Central Mass Public Health Alliance, and our goal is twofold. One fold is to make sure that the town is protected, but also making sure that the Council on Aging staff has the certificate to protect itself, but also to the town, right? And in terms of the classes, I'm working with my colleague in Worcester to see if these classes do become available. We will have spots for staff in Alliance Town to go to the classes. I'm working on it currently. And so I think at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that there's right procedure in place, but also the practices of serving food at the Council on Aging is as standard in compared with the state.
Yes, thank you for that. That's very well said and helpful. They do serve a, high risk population certainly too. So, members of the board, any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Great, thank you. All right, I know we're long today. There's a lot on this agenda, but I'm gonna move us along. We're gonna pare down. We're gonna only vote on a couple of fees tonight. And then we'll quickly vote on minutes and I will let you go. All right, so for fees, the only ones that we have to do today because it was planned for an October release is late fee non-compliance. Nancy, can you just help us? What does the late fee and non-compliance, is it around food permit?
Okay, so late fee. So the renewal applications, they need to be in by a certain time. And people have been doing it for, however long they've been in town. So if they don't get it in on time, we charge them a late fee. And that right now is $100.
Yeah. And just looking at the grid, it looks like it's $100 in Millbury. It is 25 in Shrewsbury, and in Auburn, they double it after 30 days.
Right.
So we seem to be kind of on the higher end. All the other towns, there's nothing documented for that. Would anybody like to make a motion to perhaps keep it at 100? Bill? Or raise it or, oh, you're on mute. Thoughts? Discussion?
This is Karen Gwizdowski Govan. I make a motion that we keep the late fee / non-compliance fee at $100.
Is there a second?
This is Dan Finn. I'll second that motion.
Roll call?
Karen Gwizdowski Govan, aye.
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
All right, farmer's market. I'm having deja vu. I feel like we talked about the farmer's market. Oh, okay, farmer's market. It looks like, Nancy, is this a one-time $25 fee for the
That
season?
is that's for the season.
Right.
25 for the season. We were at 100 at one point. Yeah, I don't know if you recall. And then we put it down to 25 so we could get more people to come into Grafton as opposed to going to Shrewsbury or Westboro.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have any fees.
Oh,
Yeah, that's nothing
Yeah.
less. So we're at 25. Dan?
So unless there have been any complaints, Nancy, or any other discussion, see, that seems pretty reasonable to me. So I would make a motion to leave it at $25 for the next year.
Is there a second?
This is Bill Muller. I'll second that.
Roll call?
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwizdowski Govan, aye.
Right. All right, seasonal. This is a seasonal, this is all food permit stuff, right?
right. That's like radishes. Where are we? Swirls and scoops, the hot dog trolley, places like that.
Give me my ice cream for free, please. No, I'm kidding. That is at 100 and it doesn't look like there's any fees in the other towns. Any thoughts?
This is Karen, just wondering where we're seeing like a bunch of these where there's like no other towns listed at all. Is there the potential that the other towns have it just kind of lumped together and not called out as a separate type of permit?
Correct.
Say like if you were
Yeah.
radishes in, I don't know, Shrewsbury, or whatever, you just get a food permit for whatever price. In Shrewsbury, not a seasonal food permit. It just looks
You're correct in that. That is correct, yes.
And in Grafton, do they have to get the food permit and the seasonal, or is it just the seasonal if they're seasonal?
Just the seasonal.
Any thoughts on our structure here?
This is Bill Muller. I'll make a proposal to keep it at $100.
Yep, this is Dan Finn. I'll second that motion.
Roll call?
Bill Muller, aye.
Dan Finn, aye.
Karen Gwizdowski Govan, aye.
Okay, two more. Nonprofit. Three more, I lied. Nonprofits. We have it at $10.
That's like the churches.
The what? The churches. Oh, the churches.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Do we want to leave this one? It's similarly rolled up potentially for the other towns. Oh, Nancy, I'm going to move fees up to earlier in the agenda from now on.
Well, that's why it's so low, because that they're nonprofit. You know, so if you're gonna charge them $100, it goes to their profit.
This is Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin. I will make a motion that we keep nonprofit fee for food permit at $10.
Second,
Dan Finn, I'll second that motion.
roll call.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin, aye.
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
All right, repeat inspections. Too many screens open here.
Okay. Vaughn, I don't even think you know about this. On the inspection forms, if you have to go out more than twice, you have to let us know, and we send them a letter that they owe us, where is it?
$50.
Yep. So like say you go to, I don't know, Pepperoni Express,
Mhm.
and every time you go there, you're giving them the same, they have the same violation. We have to know that here, and we have to find them.
So this is for repeat violations?
Repeat.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, repeat inspections for non-compliance.
So I want to make sure I
Pretty much.
understand. So if I go to inspect the first time and there's violations, I need to go back and check? Do they get recharged for that, or if it's the
On your
second
next,
time?
on the next inspection, regularly scheduled inspection, if you wrote them up in June and now you're writing them up again in September, and then you're gonna do it again in December. No. They
Okay,
need
but if I go in June and I find 2 violations that need to be taken care of within 5 days, and I go back, if the violation hasn't been taken care of, then I'll let you know.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go back again to verify it.
Okay.
All right, so that's at 50. There doesn't seem to be anything in any other town, so I would recommend we keep it where it is. And now Devon knows. Go ahead, Dan.
Right, this is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to keep that re-inspection fee for the third visit at $50 as previous per year, or whenever it happens, actually, right?
All right, keep it the same thing. Is there a
Keep
second?
it.
This is Bill Muller. I would second that.
Roll call?
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin, aye.
Aye. Last one, lodging. Where is it? Lodging establishment? At 100.
The
Oh, go ahead.
only one we have is the Grafton Inn.
Is that different than?
That's twice a year.
It's just a, you get a permit for being a lodging establishment twice a year.
Yes, Devon goes out twice a year.
Gotcha. It doesn't look like there's any other listing for fees elsewhere. So is it a lengthy process for you all? Or is it 100 remaining reasonable?
A lengthy inspection process?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
And there's no extra charge for the ghost in room 7 or 8, whichever it is.
Well, I was just
There
gonna ask
should
that.
be.
The new sprinkler system is gonna take care of it. And the Sagent.
Martha has been behaving lately.
Oh, gosh. I'm gonna have to get the backstory another time on this. All right, so how about we keep that one the same? Is there a motion on that?
This is Karen Gwiazdowski-Govin. I'll make a motion that we keep the permit fee for lodging establishment at $100.
A second.
Dan
This is
Finn,
Bill
second.
Muller. I second that.
Everybody seconds it.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Karen
Sorry.
Gosowski, Govan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Dan Finn, aye.
Aye. And Martha, you can charge Martha a fee if she's giving you a hard time, I guess, lodging Devon. Let's see, those are good for fees. We have 2 sets of minutes. We're not gonna do September minutes. To clarify and double click again, thank you, Nancy. Those of us that were not on the board, we can vote, but we cannot make the motion or second the motion, right? I got it.
Right.
Took me 3 times, but I got it. Would Dan or Karen like to make a motion and second that we accept the April 6th, 2020 minutes?
This is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the Grafton Board of Health for April 6, 2020.
This is Karen Gosowski, Govan, I second that motion.
Roll call.
Dan Finn, aye.
Karen Gosowski, Govan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
May 4th, 2020.
This is Dan Finn. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the Grafton Board of Health for May 4th, 2020.
It's Karen Gosowski, Govan, I second that motion.
Roll call.
Dan Finn, aye.
Karen Gosowski, Govan, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Congratulations, Nancy. I believe you're done with 2020, right? Please say yes.
Yes.
Yay.
2022.
Yay, congratulations. All
done.
right, and which everybody's been waiting for. Thank you again for your patience tonight with our lengthy agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting tonight.
Wait, hang on, I have something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amelia, go ahead.
Well, you knew I was gonna drag it out, didn't you?
Oh, that's all right.
I just, first of all, I have to say thank you to Nancy for supporting us when we try to coordinate these clinics with the pharmacist. Molly has done an incredible amount of work and taking the phone calls and just helping to schedule, but we can't do any of this without Nancy's help. So thank you to both of you. And also next year, we'll figure out a way to include the schools, maybe do things a little differently. So that's in the works. But I just want to say thank you, Molly, and thank you, Nancy.
Oh, thank you, Amelia.
That's it.
No, yeah, that was well said. They have been busy over there. So thank you all for all your hard work on behalf of Grafton. We really appreciate all of you. And we have lots of meetings set up for the upcoming year, and we'll see if there's a permanent extension to Zoom or if I think there's some sort of pending stuff around that. We'll see. But more to come. In any case, would somebody like to make a motion? Dan?
It's my specialty. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Grafton Board of Health.
Is there a second?
This is Bill Muller, I second that.
Go.
Dan Finn, aye.
Bill Muller, aye.
Karen Gosowski, Govan, aye.
And Maynard, aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Yep.
great month. We'll see you next time.